In today's video, we are going to look at Okapi ROI. This feature is available in the Okapi 360 edition as well as the Enterprise edition. And the primary functions for Okapi ROI can be edited by a site administrator and a program manager, although some of the results from Okapi ROI can be seen by event managers as well. To start looking at ROI today, from the Okapi dashboard, simply click on Campaigns and add a new campaign. And for right now, we'll just call this our Test ROI campaign. And for the purposes of our conversation today, we're going to have this campaign run over 2 months. So I will start it on March 1st, and I will end it on April 30th. We have to select a campaign budget. So maybe we have a campaign budget of $10,000. Now, to turn on the ROI measures, we have to click on Measure ROI. And then today we are going to be looking at the consumer product sampling formula. There is an opportunity if you have a custom ROI formula that you would like to use with your own metrics and custom questions. We can also build that into Okapi as well. But for now, we're going to choose consumer product sampling, which gives us a few new fields. The first one is the lifetime value of your customer. So if you create a new customer, how much money is that customer going to spend throughout their entire lifetime working with your company? So in this case, maybe this customer will spend a total of $1,000 with us. And on average, how long is that person going to be a customer? So in this case, they will spend $1,000 over the course of 5 years. Now, the last field that we have is estimated conversion rate. And this is the number of people that are going to convert from being a non-customer into a customer as the result of one of your engagements or sampling opportunities or activations. So maybe in this case, we're going to say that 30% of the people that I give a sample to will end up converting to a customer. It's also important to note about this 30% is that we are only measuring those people who have never used the product in the past. So if someone comes up to your tent or your booth and samples your product and they do submit one of your surveys, if they say that they have used your product in the past, we are not going to include them in our ROI calculations. What we are primarily looking for is non-customers, those people that have never interacted with your product in the past. So if someone has never interacted with your product and they do convert, that rate in this case is going to be 30%. Once we have all of our ROI metrics in the system, we're going to click Save, and we come to our campaign overview page. And in this case, we have 3 graphs at the top. The first one is showing the elapsed portion of our campaign. Right now, we've only seen 3% of our campaign pass by. We have 59 days remaining. The next graph shows us budget allocated. So we have allocated $10,000 in our budget, and we have not allocated any of that budget yet to upcoming events. And the last graph is budget used. And because, again, we have no events, we have no budget to speak of in the system yet. We're going to come back to this page a few times. So the first thing that we want to do is create a new event. So I'm going to open this new event creation up in a new tab. And once this loads, I'm going to start building a new event from scratch. So in this case, we are going to say this is an ROI event type, and we're going to call this the March event. And the event budget for this event is going to be $2,000. And let's say after the event was over with that the event cost was only $1,500. The next thing we have to do is select the campaign. Remember, we created our campaign as the Test ROI campaign. We can choose a program, a region, a market, and a place. Now we go down to our activity, and we're going to use the only activity type that we've created. And since this event is happening in March, maybe I'll start it on March 8th, ending on March 8th, and we'll start it at 12 p.m. and we will end at 3 p.m. I click create. I now have my event created. I'm going to click on my activities tab and go into the activity that I have created as a part of this. So the first thing that we are going to use is the web survey URL. This allows you to collect surveys via the web. You can also collect surveys via the Okapi mobile app as well. But when I click this web survey URL link, that will open up my survey inside of a new window. Now the survey we're looking at right now is incredibly simplified, but we did this to show that you can project ROI based on 2 questions and 2 questions alone. Now the advantage to adding a few more questions, if you want to ask demographic questions related to age or gender, will allow us to begin segmenting ROI across all of those different facets. But for right now, the 2 primary questions that we need to ask is first, how likely are you to purchase our product? If someone selects very likely or somewhat likely, we include them in the ROI calculations. But if they say that they're unlikely to purchase our product, then we don't want to include them as a potential new customer. So for now, I'll choose very likely. And then as I mentioned before, the next question is, have you ever purchased our product in the past? If they have purchased our product, it is unlikely, or we won't count them as a potential new customer because we have already won them as a customer. So for right now, we want to look at someone who is going to be a potential new customer and is very likely to purchase our product. Once I click submit, and this submits my survey response, I'll close this tab and click over into my survey responses. You'll see that we've already got 1 survey submitted. And then the next thing that I have to do is fill out 1 field on the recap. So let's say in this activity, I sampled 250 customers. Now that I save my recap, I'm going to go back to my ROI page and refresh this, and we will automatically begin to see ROI numbers coming in. So at this point, it shows that we still have 59 days and 3% elapsed time in our campaign. Based on the amount of budget that we have allocated, which was $10,000 total, we allocated $2,000 to this event, which means that we have $8,000 remaining. And then finally, because this event only cost us $1,500, we have only used 15% of our budget, and therefore we have $8,500 remaining. But the new graph that came up at the top is the Okapi ROI graph. Right now, this graph is showing that we have a 900% ROI based on this campaign. And what we're doing is taking the potential new customers and we're multiplying that times the total consumers sampled. So this is a projected ROI. This ROI calculation is not necessarily meant to equate directly to dollar values. This is more a strategic number that will allow you to make decisions going forward. Now, the way that we can begin to affect this number in reality is, let me go back to my activity page, and I'm going to click on my March event, and I'm going to click on my survey link again. Now we're going to add another individual that came by the booth and tested our product. And in this case, this individual was somewhat unlikely to purchase our product. And in this case, they haven't purchased the product before. So in one respect, they are not a customer yet, but they've also indicated they're unlikely to purchase our product. When I submit this survey and go back and look at my surveys tab, we can see that 2 responses have been submitted. Now I'm going to refresh my campaign page, and we should begin to see this ROI calculation decrease. So it went from 900 to 400%. So the last thing that I would like to do is create one more event. And since our first event happened in March, we are going to create a second event that occurs in April. So I will once again select my event type. And maybe this time my event budget is $5,000, but in this case I went over budget and used $7,000. I'm going to use my same test ROI campaign. I'll choose my program, my region, my market and a place. I will go down to my activity and I will put this event occurring in April. And we will have a 1 p.m. start time and a 6 p.m. end time. I'll create this event. I will go to the activity that I've created, and then I will open up the survey for this activity. And in this case, I'm going to say that my one person who submitted the survey so far is somewhat unlikely, and that they have purchased the product before, which makes them unable to contribute to our ROI calculations. I'm going to submit that survey, and then once again, remember that we do have to indicate the total number of consumers sampled. So in this case, because it's a larger event, it cost us more to be there. Maybe I sampled 5,000 people today. Once I save this, go back to my ROI page and refresh this, we are now going to see a second bar in the graph show up for April ROI. Now you'll notice that we are showing a 400% positive ROI in March and a negative 100% in April based on the single survey that we collected. We also begin to see that we have allocated 70% of our budget. We have $3,000 remaining, and now we have used 85% of our budget with only $1,500 remaining. In this case, the average ROI for this campaign is averaged out to 363%. And once again, the idea here is not to equate 363% necessarily to a certain dollar value of new revenue gained. It is to determine where and why was the April event less positive than the March event. And we can look at the event type, where we were at, what market, what region, potentially what team is working that event. Are the demographics of one event different than another event? And with this relative ROI calculation, if I begin to dig into the numbers a little bit more, I can look at my surveys, I can look at the event demographics, and I can begin to see which events we should be doing more of, and potentially which events I shouldn't be going to, or which teams I should be sending, which markets or regions I have more penetration in. And this relative number, as your event database gets larger and larger, will begin to tell you where you should be spending your marketing dollars. It can also help us to determine where some of our weak spots are at. So if one region is not performing as well as another, we have to dig in and determine, is this potentially the team that's working that region, or do we have maybe not enough brand penetration in that region? Do we need to do more marketing either in field marketing or potentially other channels such as web or TV or radio or any of the other marketing opportunities that we might have? Now, one of the most powerful features of the Okapi ROI formulas is that at any point in time, I can go back into this campaign, and if I realize at some point that instead of $1,000 in lifetime customer value, I'm actually making $1,500 per customer, I can make that change. Once I hit save, that immediately increases the ROI for this campaign. On the other hand, if I realize that instead of converting 30% of my customers, I'm really only converting 20% of my customers, I can also make that change. And again, that will affect the ROI calculations automatically within the platform. As we begin to look at ROI over time, I'm going to go into another campaign that we have created and seeded some data in. This is what a campaign over multiple months might look like. So each month with each event that we are attending, we are now seeing all of those ROI calculations over time. And in this case, outside of February, we've actually been making some pretty good gains with ROI over the course of the campaign. If I want to dive into some of these numbers a little bit more, I'm going to click the Okapi ROI tab, and now we begin to see some data that we couldn't see before. Now, some of this stuff is what we have already entered in. The customer lifetime value was entered by us, the lifetime in years was entered by us, the conversion rate was entered by us. Now we are actually going to see some data from all of the events and activities that are contained in this campaign. So in this case, we have been out in the field for 144 hours. We have sampled a total of 35,579 customers. On average, we are handing out 247 samples per hour. The average number of non-customer sampled is 63%. The average number likely to purchase is 35%. The average annual revenue per customer is $200. We have created a potential new 777 customers. And then if we do begin to extrapolate all of this information out into dollars and cents, our activities have potentially created $155,414. Now, while we don't necessarily recommend going to management and saying we have generated $155,000 in new revenue, especially in the beginning as you're figuring out some of these ROI calculations, when you begin to track ROI over time and as these numbers begin to refine, your estimated yearly increase will become much more a financial metric than it is a relative metric. In the beginning, we do recommend using this as a decision opportunity rather than a financial opportunity. Finally, we show that we have a budget of $60,000 and that we have spent $53,000 to date, and which equates to 89% of the budget. The last thing that I would like to take a look at is if I do go to my All Events tab and I look inside of one of these events, there are some new numbers that are present inside of this event. First of all, we are showing Okapi ROI at the top of this event, which is going to give you per event ROI. So now as we again begin to look at all of the events we are attending, which events or which event types or in what markets are producing the highest ROI, we can look at that immediately from the event page. Knowing at this event that we sampled 250 customers at 83 customers per hour and that 100% of them are non-customers and 50% of them are likely to purchase, gives us an estimated new customers from this event of 25 and a potential yearly increase in revenue of $7,500. We have gone over a lot of information in the video today, so if you'd like more information, click the link at the bottom of the video. If you still have questions, please feel free to send us an email to support@okapihq.com or visit the support center at http://support.okapihq.com.